Well, hello and welcome to the China Masterclass Webinar. My name is Paul Sutton and I'm one of the founders of LCN Legal. And I'm joined by my fantastic co-host, Sally, who is an expert in the area of China PR and China business development. And we have as our special guest today, Bo Ji. And I'll let Sally give Bo a proper introduction in a couple of minutes' time. But first of all, in case this is the first webinar in this series that you've seen, I'd just like to explain what it's about and what we're trying to achieve here. So the focus of the China Masterclass webinar series is all about how to create long-term trust, relationships, and value in China. And each session we invite an expert or a specialist, someone with particular experience in this field who we think can share actionable value for you as listeners or viewers. And we're extremely lucky to have Bo as our guest today. And I'm going to hand over to Sally just to give some more background.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Paul, for the great introduction. And thank you so much, Bo, to join us today. I know your time is very precious. So I'm very honored to give you a brief introduction about Bo. So Bo has many talents and titles. So Bo is an amazing TEDx speaker, a game changer in the global startup ecosystem, an advocate for impact leadership, and a very serious China entrepreneur. So Bo is currently the Chief Representative for Europe and existing Dean at Cheung Graduate School of Business, which have amazingly 10,000 plus CEO and Chairman level alumni in China, such as Jack Ma from Alibaba and Chairman of Sinopec, etc. So before Bo joined the business school, Bo had around more than 20-year corporate success in the business world, advising many Fortune 500 companies such as Cargill, Pfizer, and Mars. And after that, Bo is a very serious investor and entrepreneur, for example, starting up the China CEO program, really helping Western companies to scale up in China. So today we are very honored to have Bo with us and to leverage on Bo's wide-ranging experience. Today's theme of webinar is all about impact, how to really build relationships with China CEOs and decision makers through impact. And can I ask my amazing co-host Paul to ask the first two questions, and then I will continue. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Sally. So first question, Bo, if you don't mind, is really understanding your motivation. So, as far as I can tell, you've devoted at least the last 10 years of your life to helping Western companies succeed in China, expand in China. And my question is, why have you chosen that as your focus area, given the scale of China and the capabilities that China has itself? Why have you focused on that? And why does China need Western businesses?
Well, thank you for inviting me to join the seminar, and I'm very delighted to share some of my insights and also my knowledge about China. Now, this is a great question. Now, honestly speaking, I have lived outside of China for 26 years. So this is half of my life. So now you can guess my age. So I spent 15 years in America, 11 years in Europe. So in the beginning of my professional life, I was doing nothing about China. I was diligently working in the Western country and really driving a lot of different initiatives, and mainly in the business area. And after I started to join the CKGSB, Cheung Graduate School Business, and my role basically is to connecting Western businesses with China. And also before that, I just developed this desire because I have the Chinese blood. And I felt that the China, with the rise of the China, there is a great opportunity of the collaboration between the West and the East. So in this case, particularly with China. I started a project called China Start, which is bringing the Western entrepreneurs, instead of going to Silicon Valley, but go to China, because there's a lot of interest in China. They will be very much interested in the Western company and the Western technologies. So I see the world need to converge, and that drives my passion to helping Western companies to enter China. And why struggle yourself? The world would be so excited if we work together, from a diverse, different background, and to really tap the potential of the Chinese market. So that's really drives my passion. And then in the past 10 years or so, I've been helping a lot of Western companies of entering Chinese market. And I see a lot of fruits as well. As you see the fruits, then you feel that you're doing the right thing. And some of the companies are astonishing. One of the company, British company, they went to China reluctantly. They always had some fear and reluctantly. But once they're in China, they flourished. And they were in the retail business. So they established 200 retail selling points within 7 months. They could never imagine in UK or other part of the Europe. So they were so impressed and so unbelievably sort of shocked. And then what they did is they come to UK and stop the UK business because there's no point of doing something small walk, baby walk. So they put more effort in the Chinese market. And so stories like that is really encouraging. Another UK company went to China and they are in the environmental business. They established a business in China after the China Star program that we had. And they established a company in Hangzhou. And what happened is within a month, they started to ship the container from UK one by one. So the sales start to roll. And this is a very encouraging, and they would never would imagine that things will happen so fast. So when you see stuff like that, and you see the country, the speed and the opportunity, and such a huge size of the market, and you just feel so excited, and you just wanted other people also benefit from this. Now, China represents roughly 50% of the global economic growth. So if you want to grow your business, and where do you go? You want to go to places where there's growth. Mm-hmm. You don't want to go to places that is stagnant. So that's why it's so exciting. And usually, particularly European companies are interested in going to one large market. For instance, go to America. America is one big, large market. The problem with America is you have a lot of competition. Everybody goes there. Whether it's from Israel, whether it's from France, from Portugal, from other part of the Asia or Africa, everybody goes. But China still, people find there's some difficulty. For instance, language, culture, and you can talk about the business system. And you don't know anybody there. In America, you have a lot of friends, families, and business partners there. But in China, a lot of companies have no contact there. And then finally, there's no, investment. But China has all those. So if you learn how to conquer that difficulty, I always tell people that don't look at the difficult, look at the opportunity, and then find a solution for that. If you look at the difficulty, you will never do anything in life. But you have to look at the opportunity. That's keep our human being keep moving forward. So that is so exciting. And I always tell people that be like Marco Polo. Marco Polo went to China in the 12th century. When he speaks no Chinese, doesn't know where China is. And he didn't have an airplane at the time. It took him 1 year to reach China. So if you think China is difficult, then it's wrong, because China is not that difficult. You take an airplane, you're there. So that drives my passion, really. I'm very happy that I'm doing what I'm doing now.
Fantastic. Okay, and so the next question was, in relation to the continuing COVID situation and hopefully the post-COVID situation, what do you see as the specific opportunities for Western businesses right now in China?
Well, I see a lot of business opportunities, with the COVID. Now COVID became a new norm, right? So immediate need from Western companies is in the pharmaceutical medicine areas, that we need to fight collectively for this pandemic. This is a global issue, need a global solution. So China is putting a lot of effort in terms of research and R&D and the development of the next generation of the vaccine and also medicines. But any breakthrough will likely come from the collaboration, with all the nations involved. That's why China was very actively involved in the World Health Organization. So Western companies who are in this area, in the health in the area, whether it's from a big data point of view or from a directly, biotechnology point of view, or from pharmaceutical or anything else that could immediately collaborate with China. So I think there's a lot of immediate needs for that. And China also, with this pandemic, this became almost like a new norm. So we have to learn to do business a little bit differently. For instance, online became, digitalization becomes something really important. So the Western participation in China in terms of digitalization is very important. So for instance, a company in Ireland who specializes in what we call the digital twin technology, which is, China is a very large manufacturing country that basically are called the factory of the world. And China needs a lot of technology like that, because this technology is helping manufacturing companies to deal with maintenance. The digital twin concept is basically you create a digital version of your equipment so that you can do the maintenance remotely, and you can do the training of the staff, technical staff, and factory workers this way. So technology like that is very helpful for China as we're in this pandemic phase, particularly when human-to-human interaction became less, available. So digitalization in general, means shopping as well. How do we collaborate in the sense that we can now use, let's say, AR, VR to do the shopping? Alibaba already come up with the concept of Buy Plus, which is using AR, VR, and also artificial intelligence to allow people to do remote online shopping without the undermining the user experience. So the future, the retail experience need to be enhanced. This need to be collaborated with the rest of the world. So, which is very important. Also, technology in general. If you ask this question, genuinely help. China needed a lot of help in terms of chips, technology. So China is really behind on the chips, technology, and also America is having a sort of sanction on Huawei on the chips. They just started the sanction a few days ago. They stopped the supply of the chips. So if the Western politicians start to see this as an opportunity rather than a threat, if you cut it off, to say that we're not going to supply chips to China, you're helping China, because they're forced to develop their own chips. They have urgency to develop. So when they are able to develop better chips, then you will be really behind. So I think, any confrontation in the technology front to try to kill the other side is not a wise idea, because eventually you are helping the other side to learn how to have this sense of urgency and to really develop their own capability for that. And also environmental technology, we're fighting against a lot of problems, related to environment. So any environmental technology to deal with is very much needed in China. There's a number of the Western technology are present in China, but need more. And we are living an integrated world. We need to make our economy more circular. So circular economy, in China is not quite there. So need a lot of sort of help from the Western participation for that. And also aerospace, China is relatively weak in terms of aerospace, so these areas need a lot of help as well. It's just technology, any technology, related to advanced manufacturing, for instance, China need a lot of help, for that as well.
Great, thank you. I'm going to hand over to Sally to drill down a bit more onto the whole process of building brands, relationships, and so on.
Sure.
Thank you. Yes, so I'm going to ask something very close to my heart, which is about PR communications. I wonder, Bo, if you have any actionable PR communication tips for Western brands in China. Obviously, PR communications and building relationship with influencers are important in any market. But there are any tested tips that you would give to Western companies in terms of PR and communications?
I think for Western company to have the right PR in China, there are a few things. The first I wanted to say, the first tip I want to say is that you want to be very transparent when you are going to China. There is obviously balance between the profitability and also the positive, goodwill. So you want to be transparent. So you cannot just be propaganda. So that is very important, and be honest and transparent, and making the Chinese consumer feel it's trusted. It's very important to do that, to consider. And also, particularly if you are talking about influencer, with the Chinese influencer there, the Chinese influencer also realize being an influencer means responsibility. So you cannot just recommend anything, any product. There's a price if you are doing something wrong. So you have to build a trusted, relationship. So that means that the quality, that means they honor your promise. So these became more important. So China is no longer like 10 years, 20 years ago, where you can say anything as long as it's Western. Now they're really think about the value, the brand image, and whether you deliver the promise. For instance, if you keep changing your price and raising your bar, and then people start to see that, okay, you're just having propaganda, and then made us to start to use your product. So things like that. And a second, I think is very important is to not just talk, but also do things. Okay, it's very important. So a lot of brands just plain talking, they say a lot of things, promoting their idea, stuff like that. But you need to think about, you need to take a customer-driven PR approach. That's what I would say. You take a customer-driven, you need to understand what they want. Okay, you need to deliver the values through the PR, not just like, okay, I'm just doing the PR for the sake of PR, but rather through that I'm delivering value. Whether giving you the new information, something that you can learn from. And whether it's a lifestyle or something else. So Chinese consumers are very diligent. They want to learn. They're curious, very curious. So you better give them something there, not just telling them how good is your product, how good is your company. We're doing a lot of things, So I think this is very important. So you need to be third is need to be organic. Don't try to do it in a way that they can see right away this is a PR. But rather it feels like it's a very organic, blended approach where you didn't realize that you're doing PR, but actually it is PR at the end. So I would offer these 3 tips.
Great, thank you. So it's all about people communications. At the end, it's about how you communicate with your customers, who are also people, to be authentic and genuine.
Right.
So on this note, I wonder if there are any Western brands that you admire and you think that they are doing the right things in China at this moment. And what do you think that make it work in China?
There are a lot of Western brands that are doing really well in China, and I admire a lot of them, particularly Fortune 500 companies, and they have a very strong sort of PR related or brand image in their own country, and they have took advantage of their success back at home and also leveraged that globally. So I find it very good. For instance, Starbucks coffee. Starbucks coffee, when they first entered China and they did a research, they tried to figure out whether the Chinese market would have any play for them. Well, the research shows that the Chinese consumer prefer tea versus coffee. So, the consultant advised them not to go to China because this is not a country for coffee. It's a country for tea. If you sell tea, maybe it's okay, but not coffee. But they said that, well, what if only 1% of the Chinese drink coffee, and it would be much bigger market than majority of the European market. Mm-hmm. So they went with these premises. But once they entered China, they realized, actually Chinese consumers love coffee. They drink. You know, because their successful position, this is not just about drinking coffee, it's a lifestyle. It's a statement of your who you are. And also it is very important that they provide a space. So people come to Starbucks Coffee, not just to buy the coffee, but also to have this lifestyle, to have a seat where they can have intimacy with their friends, business partners for that. So this model works so well. Now, Starbucks Coffee, they have a very good will in China through their employee. So they give their employee, not just buy the insurance, health insurance for the, you know, in China, not every, you know, every company buy the insurance for their employee, but they buy, health insurance for their employee. Not just that, they buy insurance for their parents, the employees' parents. Because that's a tremendous goodwill. Why they do that? Because they understood the Chinese culture. You know, the children respect their parents. This is based on the Confucianism teaching that had been long history, more than 2,500 years history in China, that the Chinese children and their parents, the relationship is so strong, you know, such a bondage. So if you are taking care of my parents, I'm so grateful to you. So they understood that what is important for their employee. If they can make their employee happy, and then their employee will make the customer happy. So this is a tremendous goodwill, you know, they have done in China. Now Disneyland joined, you know, went to China for quite a long time. At the very beginning, it was merely about building the Disneyland. It took many years to do that, but and then open it up. Now Disneyland, you know, when they started in China, they had this concept of, you know, sustainable city. So when they build the Disneyland, they keep in mind of the sustainability. For instance, the water, they make sure there's no pollution to the, you know, underground water. They make sure the soil is being clean, and they make sure the construction materials they use are environmentally friendly. So all those adds up, and to extend that the Chinese government and officials from different cities and will come to Disneyland to learn, you know, how you did it. Because Disneyland to some extent is like a small city because they are so huge. They have their own system, like water, sewage, you know, garbage, and it's just like a small city, right? So Disneyland, you know, generate tremendously goodwill, you know, public goodwill through this way. And Nike is a very successful company in China. They're doing so well, not just because they are their innovation, but also through their corporate social responsibility. You know, they reach out to, you know, a lot of the rural area children to give to the underprivileged children, to allow them to play, you know, donate to the soccer, and even, you know, have some of the top stars, whether it's a Yao Ming or someone else, and to bring them to give them this opportunity to educate the young children. So this is tremendous. And also I could consider Cartier. Cartier is a watchmaker, and they also generate a very organic. This is what I was mentioning early on. Very organic public goodwill. They in the Forbidden City of China in Beijing. So they have some old ancient clock. You know, it's not working anymore. So they were involved in repairing it, and also make it work. So you know, bring the old ancient antiquity into life. So this kind of thing, using your core competency, your capability to do something, it's for the country. It's an enormous goodwill, you know, and very organic. You know, it's not just talking about donate the money to the Forbidden City, but rather leveraging their technology, their know-how, and their capability to do that. And also, finally, I could give you example of Volkswagen. You know, at any time they are sticking with China. I remember in 1989 when a lot of, you know, companies left China, you know, due to the, you know, political reasons, and they stayed until now. And so this is very important. The country needs support, not just business-wise, but also politically. So if you understood that, then you have a very long-term business, you know, potentials in China. So I think that there's a lot of Western brands which are doing really well in China, and I really admire what they have done.
Thank you. That's really good insights and lots of good examples. I will hand over to Paul to ask the last question.
Yes, so last question, Bo, you recently launched a new initiative, which is a program called Igniting Innovation for Impact. So as I understand it, it's a program with Muller Institute and the University of Cambridge. Can you explain what impact leadership is and what you want to achieve through this program?
So impact leadership is not just about leading the organization for profit, but rather to lead the organization for impact. So we are living in a society where we have a lot of disruptions. The disruption comes from political disruptions and comes from social disruption, economic disruption, technology disruption. So we're in this world where we really need to create an impact, not just think about profitability. In the past, businesses think about innovating for profit, but now we want them to think about innovate for good or innovate for impact. So that's why we initiated the Igniting Innovation for Impact, the program. What we really want to achieve is that we want to educate entrepreneurs and business leaders to learn not just create disruptive technologies, but also keep in mind how you can create an impact to the world. Now, it is always much easier if you only think about one thing, but then if you think about impact, it's different. And we believe that if you are developing a business for the impact, your profitability could be even more long-termly sustainable. It's not necessarily because I'm developing something for impact, so my business is not charming, not attractive, or I'm not making as much money. It's in contrary, because when you care about society and society gives back to you, and as Sally was saying, you have this positive PR, and this PR, by the way, is so organic. It's almost not like a intentional PR. It is just embedded in your DNA of your business, and then you have no issue, and people see that you're genuinely care about that. I have met some of the great, impact leaders in the past that they've been doing this since 80s. At that time, there's no such phrase called impact or social responsibility. One of the business entrepreneur, he told me, I was very impressed, and he said that, I asked him why he decided to create an impact business. And he said that, well, initially I was working for companies, and I found, all the companies I worked for has all kinds of the problems, social problems. Either they damage, social damage to the society, or they create an environmental problem, or they're not fair to treating the employee. So then he said that, well, I couldn't find a company that is suitable for me to work for. So then he decided to create a company that he can work for. That is his own company. So I think it's very, very important. Recently, I was invited to speak at Oxford University's Business Mutuality Conference. And I think it's a wonderful concept that we should consider mutually about our stakeholder, not just about the profit, but also your employee, also about your customer, also about your supplier. And the whole ecosystem is very important. So Igniting Innovation for Impact is exactly for that. We wanted to make sure that you are igniting the innovation and for good and for social good and for the environmental good and for your employee, for the customer, and for the general society. So I think this is a very, very important program. So we're very happy to work with University of Cambridge and working with the Muller Institute and Churchill College for this. And it's an awesome program because we also draw, the worldwide sort of executives and entrepreneurs to join this program, whether it's from China, from India, from Japan, Korea, from America, from Europe, or from Africa, from all over the place, because the impact needs to be a global driven approach. It cannot just be one country's, business. So I personally believe that in the future, every business needs to be impact driven business. If you're not impact driven, then you should not be allowed to do business. Just like if you have a pollution for your factory should be shut down. You should be allowed to produce if you create some very toxic, emissions to the air. You know, so in the future, it's the same thing. If your business is not impact-driven business, you should not be allowed to operate as a business. So I hope in 10 years, 20 years, we shouldn't talk about impact anymore, because every business is impact. And then our society, I believe, will be a much better society.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think it's such a fantastic concept. I mean, for me, the way I understand it, it's almost like the law of karma, isn't it? You know, it's all just as it applies to an individual. What is your overall intention? It is what is the overall intention and purpose of a business. And in order for it to exist at all, it needs to be a purpose which benefits everyone, makes them happier in some way, supports the sustainability of the world as it is, and supports life. So wonderful concept. So we're coming towards the end of this interview. Thank you so much, Bo. Usually at this point we would try to summarize some of the key messages. I have to say that there's been so much fantastic thoughts shared by you, Bo, that I would really struggle to do justice to that, but I will try. So number one point is just reminding everyone of the scale of the opportunity in China. You know, given that so much of the world's growth is going to come from China over the next 5, 10, 20 years, it makes complete sense to focus on that. Number two, the opposite of protectionism. In other words, I believe business can be a unifying force for humanity, because it shows how we're all connected, and the opposite, forcing countries to be separate in the way that they develop their own solutions, cannot be a healthy ecosystem for the world as a whole. Next point I took in relation to PR, the really important idea that the PR and the messages need to produce value or give value of themselves. So it's not just about promoting yourself, it's actually giving value through the actual delivery of the message and the information, and not just trying to increase sales in some way. The next points that I took were the fantastic examples of some of the Western companies that are doing it right. Just that amazing example, I think it was Starbucks, of providing for the parents of employees in terms of health insurance, and example from Disney in terms of the sustainability of the communities and the building created. And then finally, of course, impacts leadership, and really forcing us to think about why we exist here on the planet. Why are we devoting all this time in our lives to a business endeavor, and why would we do that unless it has an intention that we can be proud of? So thank you so much. I'm going to hand over to Sally to wrap up.
Yes, thank you. Before we end the webinar, Bo, do you have anything else you want to add?
Yes, I'd like to say this. We are living in a world that we are so interrelated to each other. This pandemic make us, finally, hopefully realize we are on the same boat in this universe. And initially, the pandemic was started from Wuhan, China, and quickly became a nationwide sort of issue or problem. And then while the European and Americans are watching China, the coronavirus issue unfold, and then start to show some humanity support to China. And then quickly the virus went to Europe, to America, and the rest of the world. And some countries initially think, for instance, Russia initially didn't have many cases, and then quickly became a major problem. And Brazil, we all see all this problem. So it shows us with the intense globalization, which is irreversible, that we are on the same boat. So we need to, compete with compassion and sympathy. We need to keep in mind we are all human beings. We are in the same world. So we cannot just be working in a zero-sum game where either I win or you lose, but we'd rather to try to work together for the common good of our world. So for that, I think we all need to live an impact-driven life, and we need to develop an impact-driven business as well. So that's my final words.
Great, thank you. I will make sure my business has a good purpose and good impact on people around us and society as well. Thank you so much for your wisdom. To this, I'm set to finish our webinar today. For our listeners, if you found this useful, please do share with your networks. And if you have any questions about this webinar or both, please feel free to email to us. Our email address is chinamasterclass@11kconsulting.com. And thank you again for both for making time to share your insights with us. And thank you, Paul, for being our host today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.